Well, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Another episode of the Serpent Podcast. As I always do, um, first and foremost, all praises to the man above, Lord Jesus Christ, because without him, I wouldn't be in this position to do what I love to do best and give 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 my unbiased opinions on sports related topics or just anything in general, usually sports related. But with that being said, what I want to do is there's three things that I want to talk about today, and it's so in in sports media, there's usually, well, for me at least, there's three things that kind of uh, um I kind of want to touch on because it's just like, okay, it's a little odd, especially for some of these things. So the first one I want to talk about is uh, Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin. Now, I've said this for a long time. I think, and I speak as an unbiased football fan, as an unbiased Rams fan, as you could tell. Um, I've always said that Pittsburgh is probably the classist, the classiest organization in the NFL, the pinnacle of the NFL franchises, the I would probably say most elite franchise. You can throw Cowboys in there, you can throw Patriots in there. I don't care, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't. Uh the Patriots, there's a lot of scandal that's involved with that. The Cowboys, come on. The Cowboys are just basic they're an organization, they're a franchise uh built off of, I don't know. I don't even know what to call it, to be honest with you. But they won in the 70s, didn't win in the 80s, won three in the 90s, and haven't won anything since. For me, I've always said it was Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got six of them. You could argue they could have seven if it wasn't for Neil O'Donnell throwing that game against Dallas. And I've been saying that since that Super Bowl. But for me, it's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has had three NFL head coaches since the 70s, three of them. And there's a lot of respect that goes into that franchise. There's a lot of respect that goes into what they've done and what they've accomplished, in that span. So when I look at somebody like Mike Tomlin is obviously the third head coach that they've hired. And all things considering, he's done a great job with that organization, especially for with what he's had to work with. Do I think Pittsburgh should let him go? No. Do I think he was the problem? No, he's not. He hasn't had a real quarterback, and uh, I kind of scratch my head at a couple of things. I'm a character guy. I'm a high character guy. I'm a performance type guy as well when I look at things, right? Is Najee Harris the back for them? Is number one. Can he get the job done? Is he more than capable? Yeah, you could say he's capable. Do they have a quarterback? I thought they did in Russell Wilson. I honestly thought that, um, and not to say that I'm giving up on him, but I honestly thought that he would be a little bit better. And I mean, he was better as a Steeler than he was as a Bronco. The one thing I have to look at is I have to look at someone like George Pickens. Uh, and you, there's certain things that you can't do as a professional player. And you have to, I don't think someone like, and this is no disrespect whatsoever to George Pickens, but you can't have these type of antics and you're not even the Justin Jefferson type, Jamar Chase type. I would argue he's probably cost the team some games this year, just off of some of the things that I've seen. Uh, so for me personally, I don't think Mike Tomlin is the problem. I don't. You give him something to you give him basically little to nothing to work with, especially at the quarterback position. It's been a carousel of quarterbacks in there since Ben Roethlisberger retired, and even at that, the dude should have retired about 3 years prior. And look, I'm going to say this about him: he recently picked the Ravens to beat Pittsburgh. Like, what does that say about you? Are you bitter? Are you bitter about the Pittsburgh Steelers or something? For you to choose a rival over the team you play for? I mean, like you guys literally went to war against the Baltimore Ravens since you started playing in Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden, when they play each other in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you're in favor of the Ravens. You got an issue with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got an issue with Mike Tomlin. Um, like I said, for me personally, I don't think. Matter of fact, I know Mike Tomlin is not the problem in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin is not the problem. I think you need to give him something more that he can work with. Maybe it's all. Maybe it's the offensive coordinator. I don't know, but I don't think he's the problem whatsoever in Pittsburgh. I think all things considering, he's made the playoffs. Well, I don't know if he's made the playoffs every year, but I know he's had a winning record. He's never had a losing season as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Considering that he hasn't had really much to work with. Defenses are always top five, top 10 defenses since he's been the head coach. But you got to give him something to work with on the offensive side of the football. You have to. You can't have a disgruntled an or you can't have a receiver like George Pickens, you know, giving away yards, not running routes that he should be running, or just playing the blame game and just so on and so forth. They're having tantrums. You can't have that. And you have to be able to be in a situation, be in a position where you can give Najee Harris the football more and have that offensive line just start bodying up uh the defensive lineman for the opposing team, whoever it may be, right? Obviously, you see your division in Baltimore and Cincinnati and and Cleveland. So when I say that Mike Tomlin is a problem, you know, I don't think Mike is the problem. To me, he's the top three head coach with him, Andy Reid, and Sean McVay. However order you want to put those guys, and those are the top three coaches in the NFL. Period. And to pivot over in the news also is Deion Sanders. Now, what I'm about to say, I say it respectfully. I don't say it with no disrespect whatsoever. Deion Sanders coaching the head coaching the Dallas Cowboys. Now, what I'm going to say has nothing to do with Deion's ability to coach in the NFL whatsoever. Do I think he can coach at the NFL level? I sure the hell do. Do I think he will be successful as an NFL head coach? I absolutely do. Do I think he has a capability of winning Super Bowls as a head coach in the NFL? Yes, I do. 100%. Does this have anything to do with him coaching the Cowboys? Not necessarily. The point I'm going to make is more about Colorado. And in my personal opinion, I think that's where he should stay. Again, not because I don't think he could coach in the NFL, because I know he can coach in the NFL. Like I said, I know he can be. This has nothing to do with his ability to not coach in the NFL, because I absolutely think he can do it. I actually think he can succeed in the NFL. I say Colorado more because college kids can use a coach like Deion there. They can use that. They can use Deion as a mentor. He can teach these guys things that other coaches can't do. And it's not that I don't think he won't be successful at coaching in the college level, because I think he can. I just think for me personally, I would like to see more coming out of these kids, character wise, just responsibility. And he brings that. He brings that to the forefront. He brings that to the table. He's like you see these clips of him coming up and talking talking to these kids the way these kids need to be talked to, right? But not stepping on them, not stepping on their toes, not being disrespectful, not crossing the line, you know, but teaching them and educating them in ways that, you know, other coaches in at the collegiate level aren't doing. He can get them better prepared for life, for football or after football, how to be responsible, what to look for when you're in the NFL. I think that is what he can do at the college level. And again, it doesn't have to be Colorado. It could be SC, it could be Oregon, it could be Michigan, Ohio State, wherever. Even if it goes to a university in Texas somewhere. For me personally, I think college kids can use that, because if it's one thing that someone of my age knows is you don't see a lot of kids being taught at the homes how to respect people, how to be humble, how to save your money, you know, and there's things of that nature. I mean, just look at what he did with those kids in Colorado. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And like I said, for me personally, this again, this has nothing to do with him not being able to coach in the NFL because I think he can. I know he can, 100%. I just feel like the students can use him more at the college level than they can use him at the NFL level. And that's just my opinion. He, like I always say, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to make you think. Plain and simple. I'm here to make you think. And for me personally, let's think about this. Could they use him on the NFL level? Yeah. Could they use him more at the college level? 100%. 100%. Teach these kids to grow up and how to be men, stand on their own 2 feet. I personally love that. I personally love that. That's what I would want. I would want him to coach my kids. That's the kind of coach I would like. Now, in the NFL, what happens in the NFL is you come across a lot of egos now, right? Like for me personally, um, outside of I'm sorry, not Dallas Cowboys, outside of the Colorado Buffalo, I wouldn't want him to coach in Dallas either. I think there's too much ego going on over there. I I I want him to be able to coach somewhere where if he's going to coach in the NFL, I'll just say it this way: if he's going to coach in the NFL, I would rather him coach somewhere where he can coach, he could be him, and you ain't gonna deal with uh egotistical players. And I see that all over Dallas, and it starts up top. It starts up top. Do I think Jerry Jones is going to allow Deion to be who Deion is? I think it may happen for a little bit, but you know, if he didn't allow Jimmy Johnson, to basically run the team the way he wanted to, they would probably still have more Super Bowls. If he would allow Bill Parcells to run the team the way Bill Parcells wanted to and not meddle in the business, they probably would have had Super Bowls there too. You may be looking at Dallas Cowboys as their greatest franchise if he allows those guys to do their job. But when you got a meddling owner like that, I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's possible. And then you got to deal with guys that up here, like I don't know if guys. It seems to me that guys play for themselves because over the last couple of years, it's been a lot of finger pointing. It's been a lot of this going back and forth. Would I want that for Deion? No. I would rather, like I said, I would rather him coach somewhere where they're going to allow him to coach, give him control, allow him to give it to provide his input as to the type of players that he wants on the team. What Kansas City does, what the Rams do, what San Francisco does, so on and so forth. That's what I would want for him. I personally for him, and I know he's got a relationship with Jerry Jones, and I know he's been a Dallas Cowboy. And I know he's been a champion as a Dallas Cowboy, just like he's been a champion as a San Francisco 49er. Would I want him to coach the Dallas Cowboys? No, no. I would rather him coach where I know he'll be at peace, he'll have control, he'll have some say so in draft picks, and allow him to be him. And for the most part in Colorado, he still has that. He still has that. So, like I said, for me, I would rather him coach in Colorado. I know, as a matter of fact, that the college players can use him more. Um, and uh he has more to teach those kids and prepare those kids. So another topic I want to get into is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has recently been the talk across a lot of sports media platforms about his play against not only against the Lions but against the Rams in the playoffs. Now, while some people will, and some people have blamed Sam for that loss, I personally don't. The reason why I don't is, see, what you're doing is you're discrediting what the Rams defense did to that offensive line. Now, one thing, one thing I always hear in sports media, right, is protect the football. Okay, he threw one pick, and the other turnover he had was a sack fumble. Whether you want to say those two things were his fault, I don't know. I don't think though. I don't think so. To be honest with you, what I do know is they didn't give him much time in the pocket. Now, if the one thing that keeps getting talked about is throwing the football away. If you're sitting in the middle of the pocket and you're talking about throwing the football away, and there's no receivers in the area, that's intentional grounding. It's a penalty. So what is the next thing they tell you to do? Take the sack. Take a sack over the pick, throw the ball away if you're able to throw the ball away. Now, when the pocket collapses as fast as it did Monday night, where do you go? The kid was running for his life. Where do you go? They couldn't run the football. Their receivers were clamped down. If I'm not mistaken, I think the biggest play was a run by Cam Akers. Where do you go? Where do you go? No run game. Your receivers are clamped down. Where do you go with the football? So the talk is now, because of the games that he's had, the last two games that he's had, cost him a lot of money. So it made me think about something. So let's think. Let's talk about this. We always hear about Justin Jefferson being an elite quarterback in the NFL. We always hear about the number of head coaches he's had, the number of offensive coordinators that he's had. And I'm not taking anything away from those things because those are true, but I'm not taking anything away from it, right? So he's not successful in the playoffs, hasn't won a playoff game. Okay. So let's think about that. He's on a functional organization. Say what you want. He's on a functional organization. He's been to the playoffs a number of times. He's had some teams where they were very talented, top to bottom. Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, right? Joey Bosa, Darwin James, Khalil Mack. Got some talent on that team. Unsuccessful in the playoffs. So I bet you, if you ask any analyst, will he get paid top dollar as a quarterback? And they'll tell you, yeah. They'll ask you to, they'll give you a range of 45 to 50 mil a year, right? And he's hasn't won a playoff game. By their same metrics, meaning these analysts and these sports journalists, these NFL journalists, by their same metrics, only based off of two games, Sam Darnold cost himself about $25 million a year, just over two games. Let's make this make some sense here. Okay. Sam Darnold was drafted by the Jets, a dysfunctional organization with no talent around him and no coaching around him. Then he goes on to Carolina, another dysfunctional organization with no coaching and no talent around him. Then he goes to San Francisco, where he's a backup, plays one game, and looks well. Now he's in Minnesota with a functional head coach, talent from top to bottom, and he goes 14-3. He goes 14-3 up until the last game of the season. The Minnesota Vikings were fighting for the number one seed. When has Justin Jefferson ever put, I'm sorry, not Justin Jefferson, I'm sorry. When has Justin Herbert ever put the Chargers in that spot? When? When? When have you ever seen him in a position where he can put the Chargers at the number one seed, let alone in a position to win the division? When have you seen him go? When have you seen him win 14 games? And you can say, oh, well, he won 14 games in a 17-week season. He still won 14 games in 16 games. The last game of the year, they lost. The last game of the season, they lost to Detroit. Still won 14 games. So you put Sam Darnold on a functional team with a functional head coach with some weapons in Jefferson, Addison. You're going to get Aaron Jones, got Hodgkins there. You got a pretty too solid defense there. And you're going to tell me that you're going to pay Justin Jefferson, I'm sorry, excuse me, Justin Herbert. You're going to pay Justin Herbert elite quarterback money for a guy that hasn't won in the playoffs and hasn't even sniffed the division and hasn't even sniffed the number one seed. But you're going to tell me a guy that sniffed the division, sniffed the number one seed, that he cost himself money over because of two games? This is what we're going to do. Seriously. This same Sam Darnold threw an interception that wasn't his fault. The defense just read it. This same Sam Darnold who fumbled the football was a sack fumble because his offensive line wasn't protected. And you're going to compare that to the four picks that Herbert threw in the wild card game. Oh, yeah. And they got blown out too. So, what I'm saying is this: how do you justify one over the other? Again, understand the conference that Sam Darnold is playing in. The Lions are elite. The Packers are elite. The Bears are on the team that could have been on the rise, but their coaching sucked. And he still managed to want to win 14 games and still fight and be in a position to not only win the division, but win the conference as the number one seed. This is what he did. When has Justin Herbert done this? But there are some analysts and there are some NFL and there are some NFL execs, not even just execs, NFL analysts as well, that will pay Justin Herbert top dollar as an elite quarterback. But here they say that they're not going to pay a guy or a guy that lost two games, lost a lot of money because of the last two games that he played. And the narrative is, I want to see what he does in the playoffs first before I pay him. So we're going to have that about Sam Darnold, but we're not going to have that for Herbert. See, it's clear, it is obvious that some of these sports analysts, not some, a lot of them, pick and choose who they want to pay or who they feel should be paid. And a lot of times, by their own metrics, by their own metrics, a lot of the things that they say are not validated because I just use their metrics to my favor. Let me rephrase that. I use my metrics. I use their metrics in Sam Darnold's favor. So you're going to pay Justin Herbert, but you're not going to pay Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, who again, by the way, his first year on a functional team, his first year on a functional team was in position to win the division and be the number one seed in the conference in his first year. His first year. Let me give another example. You hear all the talk about Matthew Stafford and his status as a quarterback while he was in Detroit. The guy played in Detroit, who was then a not functional organization. Yeah, they had Megatron. Yeah, they had a couple of playoff runs. Where was the defense and where was the coaching? Oh, he's never won All Pro. He's never won MVP. Okay, because you had Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew and um sorry, I'm trying to brain farts with the other quarterbacks that were playing around that time. Kurt Warner. So because you have some of these guys already playing at elite levels, just like Matthew Stafford was in Detroit, of course he's gonna get overlooked. Of course he is. What happened when you put him on a functional team with a functional head coach and weapons all around? Matthew Stafford wins his first Super Bowl, his first year as a Ram. His first year as a Ram on a functional team leads the Rams to the Super Bowl and is now a Super Bowl champion. And yet you still got some of these analysts that would pick a lot of these quarterbacks over him. It's because they like to pick and choose who their favorites are and what they prefer. Not actually using this a lot of times because Matthew Stafford's track record as a Ram has already been proven. It's the same thing I say about Sam Darnold. His first year on a functional team goes 14-3 with a chance to win the division and be the number one seed. And somehow, because the last two games that they played that are so-called his fault, he loses out on money. But a guy that's never sniffed the division and never sniffed the number one seed and is 0 for whatever in the playoffs is a guy that they're going to look to pay 40, $50 million a year. Let's make that make sense. Because to me, that doesn't. The math doesn't math. It doesn't add up. Again, this is by their metrics. Sports analysts metrics. Guys that play in the league, their metrics. Those guys played in the leagues. And this is what kind of bothers me because these guys have played in the league. So you would think and you would know that some of these guys would be like, no, no, but you gotta understand certain this. So every argument that is made for one player to discredit another player is like, well, wait a minute. If you're gonna discredit this player for this, you again, let's look at this Herbert and Darnold situation. You're gonna pay Herbert, but you're not gonna pay Darnold. You want to see what he does in the playoffs before you pay him. In reference to Darnold, we've seen what Herbert is in the playoffs, and they still want to pay that. What are they going to say? It was the coaching, right? Coaching mistakes. In reference to Herbert to back up their defense. Can't you say the same about Minnesota? Is that what we've all been saying about the Detroit Lions when Matthew Stafford was there? Coaching matters, doesn't it? So for me personally, I don't think the losses that Minnesota endured over the last two games were necessarily on um, on Sam Darnold. At some point, you got to hold that offensive line responsible. I do the same with my team too. At some point, at some point, you have to hold certain specific guys, specific groups accountable. I just said that about George Pickens. He's got to be able to hold himself responsible for some of the things that he cost his team. On the NBA side, I look at what the Lakers do and firing head coaches when these players are lazy and show up to play when they feel like they want to play. At some point, you have to be able to look at both the coaching and the players. This just can't all be on Sam. Stop using these metrics to define who needs to be paid and who doesn't need to be paid. Because for every metric that you use, you're only not validating what you're saying. Because sometimes those metrics just, like I said, don't add up. And my proof is right there with Justin Herbert and Sam Darnold. The guy that's been to the playoffs and lost all of the playoff games that he's been in, and still willing to pay the man $50 million for a guy that's never sniffed the number one seed and never even sniffed the division, compared to a guy that lost two games, the last two games of the year, was in a position to not only win the division but also win the conference and be the number one seed. I don't know. It's just me, but I just think it's funny to me. Anyways, you guys let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. Hit the like, subscribe buttons. Share this. Uh, and please, again, don't forget to let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys next week.